Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. And we're continuing here inside St Mary's Church, St Mary's Parish Church here in Comber. And St Mary's Church was originally a Cistercian monastery that was built here on this very site in 1199, the 12th century AD. So during the Middle Ages, this would have been a thriving community. And with the suppression then of the monasteries by King Henry VIII, this monastery was actually closed in 1543. Now, the Scots settlers, they established a church in the ruins of the monastery around 1610, but the present church actually dates from 1840. And if you check out the other wee video, the historian Desi, and we will be talking to Desi shortly, he pointed out a lot of monuments and also talked about some of the windows that are in this church. So if you check out that video, you will see that. Now, the Reverend Robert Mortimer, he had succeeded as rector actually to St Mark's in 1783. He was married to Jane Stone, who was the daughter of the Reverend Guy Stone. And they had actually 13 children. And if you remember, we were at I showed you the grave. Desi talked a wee bit about the grave there of Guy Stone. Now, in 1796, the Belfast newsletter told of a raid on his orchard in which a number of his trees and shrubs were maliciously cut down. And in 1797, 733 people from the town and neighbourhood of Comber actually stood before Mortimer in his role as magistrate to subscribe to an oath of allegiance. Now, he commanded the York Fencibles. He accompanied the York Fencibles to the Battle of Saintfield during 1798, during the rebellion of the United Irishmen. And the minister himself was actually killed, and so was his nephew. Both of them were actually killed. And some say that he was buried in a mass grave site in Saintfield at York Island. And of course, York Island is so known because there were that many of the York Fencibles who were actually buried there, and so that's how it got its name. Now, another story actually tells us that he was secretly buried at Comber underneath this very church. So I don't know which story to believe, but there is a possibility that the minister is actually buried underneath the church here. And inside St Mary's, there is a memorial tablet which was erected to the memory of 3 members of the York Fencibles who were actually killed at the Battle of Saintfield in 1798. And they are Captain Chitwind, Lieutenant Unite, and Ensign Sparks. And the tablet was actually erected by 3 of their fellow officers. And it is believed that Captain Chitwind was in command of the vanguard of the column that day, and that he was allegedly shot while trying to rally his troops by a farmer from Tonhamore called Daniel Millen. Now, the government troops were quartered in First Comber Presbyterian Church after their defeat at the Battle of Saintfield in 1798. But there's a wee memorial here, and that's what we're going to look at just now. And so we'll have Desi here again, and Desi's going to tell us a wee bit about this memorial to these 3 officers. Hello, Desi.
Hi. Well, I don't know that I've an awful lot to add to what you've said. 3 members of the York Fencible Regiment killed at Saintfield: Captain Chetwynd, Lieutenant Unite, Ensign Sparks, and also killed in the battle the Reverend Robert Mortimer, the minister of this church. You may ask why he was at the battle. He may have been there in his role of Justice of the Peace.
Yes.
But he was killed at the battle along with his nephew as well. It is believed that this memorial is the only one in the province to members of the government forces.
Is that right?
So I've been told.
My goodness. Right enough, I can't remember seeing... Well, there is another one. There's actually one on the battlefield at Saintfield. There's one to the York Fencibles.
Right.
If you check out my video, actually, on the Battle of Saintfield, if I remember rightly, there is actually a memorial there to the York Fencibles. I'm near enough sure, Desi, but I would need to check out that wee video again just to make sure. But yes, when you mentioned there the minister, of course he was a magistrate, and that's absolutely why he could have been there. But it wouldn't have been unusual either, sure, it wouldn't have, Desi, for ministers to actually take part in the Battle of Saintfield, or even any of those battles during the rebellion.
It has been known. I mean,
because a lot of the...
There were some of the ministers who were members of the United Irishmen.
That's right. It was actually a Presbyterian minister that actually led the United Irishmen into the Balnahinch. He was at the front of the column. So certainly there was a lot of ministers, a lot of Presbyterians who fought for the United Irishmen. But what people forget also, there was a lot of Presbyterians who fought for the government as well, in the yeomanry and whatnot. And so it was near like a civil war between the Presbyterians. Well, that's great.
It was a time whenever the Presbyterians and the Roman Catholics actually came together.
Is that right?
And fought on the same side.
Yes. Everything's mixed up, isn't it? No, are we
absolutely mixed up.
There's no doubt about it. So I better let them see this monument then. This is fantastic to have this. So this isn't just a monument, as Desi said. This isn't just a monument that was put up to remember these men. This monument was actually put up by their fellow officers. So that is incredible. That's fantastic. So it's authentic and absolutely brilliant. So thank you for joining me on the Church History Trail. And I'd like to thank Desi for his tour today. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. And I would just like to thank you, Desi.
Okay, you're welcome.
Again, if you enjoy the channel, please like and subscribe. God bless.